even though the thing was right in front of me. But I know it's crazy to make such a decision. But it's not the point. Whatever it is, you make a decision, then the process in here will change. I speak three languages, Japanese, English, and español. Hablo español también, aprendí por mi cuenta cuando tenía 36 o 37, algo así. No soy perfecto, no hablo español perfectamente como sea natar, pero no es importante para comunicarse o hablar perfectamente. Lo más importante es que para poder comunicarse con ellos que hablan español bastante bien, so we could share things together. El problema es que no estoy trabajando con el proyecto, entonces.
Okay.
So the reason I learned Spanish was something special to me, and I made a strong decision at the moment. And then once I made the decision, everything started changing, because here, once I made the decision, that strong decision that could not be broken, no matter what, the thinking process of my brain was completely changed. Like the moment I decide, I started noticing the things that I hadn't been able to see, even though the thing was right in front of me. So, that was like I was wearing the glass that makes me not being able to see those things. And the reason I decided to speak or be able to communicate in Spanish was that I made the decision to marry this person. Embarcación. 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 Beso. Boat. To marry this person who speaks Spanish, who also speaks English, who was, at the same place of the workplace. But I know it's crazy to make such a decision, and I was even not even as a friend, I made that decision. And that is something that sounds crazy, but it's not the point. Whatever it is, you make a decision, then the process in here will change. Así is an adverb meaning like this, like that. Fueron is a verb ir, meaning to go or to be. It's third person plural pledlike, meaning there were. Behind this verb is the subject. And once I made the decision, there was no question about to start learning Spanish. Was not a question, because I wanted to be able to speak with her friends and family in Spanish, and I knew how long it would take to learn a new language. So that's what I made a decision. And once I made a decision, things became clear, like right away. At the moment I made a decision, I went to the bookstore right away and I picked up the book to learn Spanish. And when I read the Spanish book, and then it has kind of a guide, clue to be able to learn Spanish fast, which was to master the verb and verb conjugation. So I trusted that advice to my heart, and I did it. Like I went back home and I researched the resources online. Most likely, it is an imperative form of either er verb or ir verb. This is why it's important for us to be familiar with the verb conjugation and being able to recognize it. And also, I knew that I needed to practice right away. I also needed to, learn everything from the beginner's material to advanced material at the same time. I didn't want to go to school because I knew the school will give me super beginner thin stuff, and that would make me take longer time. And I knew that from my English learning experience. So I just decided not to take any tutors or go to school, but I started by my own because I knew I could gather enough information from beginner to advanced by myself, and I could learn it. The only thing is I needed native speakers to practice with. So the first thing I did was to find a group in the meetups. Of course, I expected there are no native speakers, but at least there are persons who are interested, have a same interest to practice Spanish for me to be able to practice with, right? Alguacil. 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 Bailiff. And so that's what I did. And sometimes actually Spanish speaking people found a group and came to practice with us because they wanted to help us. And that's something, amazing thing that happens sometimes. And I had a lot of Spanish speaking friends, so I started to speak as much as possible of Spanish. And this is the thing, sometimes a native speaker don't want to speak their language with somebody who are not comfortable with that language, because the whole purpose of conversation is to be able to communicate most efficiently, so that actually being able to communicate fully, like at its best, because that's the most efficient way. So that's a natural way of response of a human being. So but I try to find people who would be willing to speak Spanish with me, among friends and then people surround me. If you go to a restaurant of some Spanish, like a Spanish speaking country's cuisine, then I will find the waiters and I order in Spanish, for example. And the practicing was the most important thing, in addition to verb conjugation mastery. But anyways, once I made a decision, I experienced this. So that's why I want to try to tell as many people as possible. Once you make a decision, the wiring of this brain will completely, almost instantly change, and something that was in front of you that you couldn't see will start being able to show up, basically be visible. So it's really the decision making to get rid of all the doubts and options not to do it. And yeah, that's one of the, I mean, this is huge. Actually, this is huge. A big portion of, you know, things that makes you be able to be learn the foreign language successfully. Because as a human being, we all have a capability, no matter how old you are. So the key is to unlock that potential. And I think once we can do that, all of us in entire planet will be able to learn a second language or third language successfully. So the consequences appears almost all the time negatively in the short term. But that's only perspective. So if you are afraid, if you become afraid of short-term appearance of the consequences as negative, then you become hesitant to take any actions. But almost all the time, any consequences in the long run, in the long term, it appears positive. Siniestro, 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 siniestro. Disaster, sinister, fateful. In the long term, it appears positive, that something that you were glad that you did. So you have to really, have this in mind, that when you take actions, when you are afraid of something, just think that it's just a short-term appearance that is disguised. So in my experience, in my example, is that when I wanted to marry this girl, she didn't even become a friend, right? That's the consequences, because I scared her away. Now I couldn't even create a friendship with her. But I did everything I thought I could imagine, right? I immediately started learning Spanish in order to communicate, being able to communicate with her family and friends who probably wouldn't be able to speak English like she did. And I bought a townhouse, it's a two townhouse. Like in the past, I was that I would buy a house with the girl of my destiny, right? Like my dream, I don't know why, but my dream was to well, in the past, I think, I would say my mistake, but I have experience, and then probably, ideal was to buy a home with, person of destiny. But whole thing changed my mindset, right? Everything had got changed here. Prender, 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 catch, arrest. Yeah. So what I decided was to buy a house on my own, because who would want to go out with a guy who couldn't even buy his own house? So that's the switch that happened. And I really wanted to know her, and culture and where she was born when she was grow up. So, but things didn't, go well as I, wanted. So I just went to her hometown just by myself, just to know where, a little bit more because I knew where she was from. So I just went there. So, and like I said, things didn't turn out as I imagined, but that's the short-term consequences perspective, right? So do I feel sad about it? For a moment, it hurt me so bad, right? Because I couldn't even, make a good friendship with her. But the long-term consequences, now I can speak third language. Now I have home. Now I turned out, I turned that into a rental property, and at the end of the day, I sold it. But anyways, so there was a consequences, different consequences from different perspective. Think about how children learn their new language or two. They just go and practice whatever they learn, right? But adults concerned about what other things, or you don't want to make a mistake, so they hesitate to do that, which actually stop and close our potential of our brain. And everybody has the same ability that children has as human beings. I really enjoyed the trip to her hometown, and that was a great memory. And I talked to everybody, pretty much everybody I encountered everywhere, and just to even practice Spanish. But there was so much connection that I could make with people. So that's another different angle of the consequences. So we have to be aware that our mind will create a negative perspective on short-term consequences, but the consequences that any action will bring to us is positive, I believe. So we really want to be able to free from any ideas or concept that was built in ourselves when we were growing up, and we want to be able to optimally be able to take action for the better future.